Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. So we have our special guest, one of my favorite, if not favorite, Twitter accounts with us, Ian Carroll. He's a citizen journalist, online educator, and a small-town burger joint enthusiast whose motto is follow the money, seek the truth, and do your own research. Don't do your own research. You're a white supremacist. Anyway, he also hosts the online show Cancel This, and his TikTok currently boasts more than 1.6 million followers. Welcome to the show, Ian Carroll. How are you?
Thanks, Jimmy. Good to talk to you, man.
Now,
Appreciate being here.
How have you not been kicked off of TikTok? I got banned from TikTok already.
Dude, I do not know. I'm hovering at 2 strikes, but I very strategically entered with very basic BlackRock conspiracy content that is totally allowed. And I grew the platform relatively big before I started to talk about people like the CIA and Jeffrey Epstein. So I think I gamed the system just barely.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So you and I feel very simpatico with you and your point of view on things. And you have done deep dives. He'll go in and do these explainer videos that he posts right to Twitter, because I don't go to any other social media except Twitter. It's the only one I can stand. And I don't even know how Instagram works. I don't know why people go there. I don't understand it.
It doesn't.
And Facebook is just anyway. So anyway, I saw you tweeted this out, this video, and this is exactly, I've lived through this. And so I've been saying similar sentiments like this. I'll make a joke in my act that, I'm for freedom of speech. I'm for bodily autonomy. I'm anti-war. And so, I'm a right winger. Anyway, so here we go. And you're basically saying that you're lamenting the loss of the Democratic Party's adherence to those values. And let's just listen.
Because the Democratic Party is currently the CIA party, okay? If you aren't aware of this, open your eyes.
So I just want to, I'm sorry I have to stop it already, but when I still worked at the Young Turks, right after Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, and everybody else who works there except me was repeating CIA and FBI talking points uncritically about Donald Trump and Russiagate and Julian Assange. They just, just not one skepticism of anything they would say. Oh, the Russians hacked into 31 databases of our election. And I'm like, that's not, how do you know that? The FBI said so. Yeah, they're liars. And of course, it turned out they were lying about everything. But as you just point out, the Democratic Party has become the party of the CIA and the FBI. The intelligence.
They don't even hide it.
They don't even hide it. They just repeat them. I mean, look what Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian did about Julian Assange. They just repeated a bogus story about him being visited by Trump's campaign manager and that he was working for Trump. And they said he couldn't be trusted. They still have that video up on their channel. Anyway, all right, I'll try not to stop it again. I'm sorry.
Because the Democratic Party is currently the CIA party, okay? If you aren't aware of this, open your eyes. I am from there. I am one of you guys. And clearly, it has been co-opted. I was once a liberal and I was once a Democrat. And we used to believe in anti-war, duh. Anti-big corporations, duh. Regulate the big corporations like big pharma, like big agriculture, like the military industrial complex and the banking sector. We used to believe in holding the powerful accountable, in freedom of speech, because that is essential to journalism. And somehow a whole bunch of people have been tricked into thinking that the Democratic Party now stands for.
Okay, I have to stop it there. So those, I'll play the rest in a second. But yes, how did this, so this happened because of Trump. That's what I blame this on. We used to, before COVID and before Trump got a hold of COVID, the people who were the most virulent saying you have to take a mandated experimental medical treatment used to be protesting GMOs. right? Neil, whatever his name is, with Daryl Hannah. What's his name? Neil, the musician. Neil. Anyway, doesn't matter. Neil Young. Neil Young used to do
Oh, Neil.
used to protest GMOs, and then he took his music off because Joe Rogan was saying sensible things about an experimental medical treatment. So I think it happened because of Trump, and Trump is the blanket excuse to become. The Democrats have become warmongers. The Democrats have become uncritical of the intelligence community or big pharma or corporations or the oil or anything. What do you say to that, Ian?
I would argue that Trump was when they pulled the major swap, but I think it started with Obama, and it started with Obama and the banks, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone brought Obama, and this is like, I grew up in this. I was young. I wasn't old enough to vote for Obama the first time in 2008, so I also wasn't old enough to notice what was happening. But when you go back and look at it, you realize that Citibank gave him a list of people to put into his cabinet, and then he put them all into his cabinet and then bailed out all of his banking buddies that had gotten him there in the first place. And that went totally under the Democrats' radar because he was such a powerful orator and like politician, really. And so I think that Obama was the start of that walking veil that sort of sleepwalked the Democratic Party into whatever they wanted to say. And then when they were presented with Trump as the opposition, that just gave them like free reign to do whatever they wanted to their people's minds, because anything to stop Trump, right?
So I have to remind people, because I'm older than you, that Bill Clinton was no friend of the working man. And Bill Clinton, when he became president, he could do things that Republicans couldn't. Like what, Jimmy? Well, first of all, he got NAFTA passed, right? Because George Bush the first, Herbert Walker, could not get NAFTA passed, but Bill Clinton came in and he gave cover to the blue Democrats in the South so they can then pass NAFTA, which cut the legs out from underneath the union movement for a generation. Right? Then he went on to gut welfare as he exploded the prison population. He consolidated the media, and then he deregulated Wall Street, which led to a crash of our economy within 10 years. And he wanted to privatize Social Security, except that got stopped because of the BJ. That's literally the truth.
all while flying around getting BJs from his buddy Jeffrey.
And
from his buddy Jeffrey's friends.
Yes, you know? and because of Monica Lewinsky, that scandal broke, and that put the kibosh on the secret deal that he had with Newt Gingrich to privatize Social Security. So when Bill Clinton became president, he went to Wall Street, he went to the military-industrial complex, he said, hey, we're open for business. It's no longer we're the parties of workers, which is why the workers have nowhere to go anymore, and that you see them going back to the Republican Party. So I just want to remind people that it was Bill Clinton that actually started it, and Barack Obama put it into overdrive for sure. He didn't end any wars. He expanded those wars. He took us from 2 wars to 7. He dropped more bombs than George Bush. People don't know that, right? And then, of course, he used the Espionage Act to prosecute journalists more than all the presidents combined before him. So this idea that Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, that some kind of unique threat, is bullshit. Because the people who actually prosecuted journalists was Barack Obama. He's the one who started it, ramped it up. And, of course, Joe Biden just convicted him of a felony, Julian Assange, for doing journalism. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Throw it back to you.
I mean, I think you're exactly right. And the more you learn about history and actually like learn for yourself, not what you're told from the news, you realize that they're very good at juggling back and forth between both sides of the pendulum, right? They need to get some stuff done that's easier to do from the right. They'll give you a right guy for a while.
That's right.
That naturally makes us all want to swing back to the left. They give you the left guy that's going to get the same things done from the other side of the aisle. And so it's always policies for the club, and it's never policies for us. And they just keep, I mean, I would argue maybe since Kennedy got shot, that was probably the last time that we had a president that might have had us in mind.
100%.
Yeah, just did a deep dive into him. That's actually what this clip is from a video about the Kennedy assassination, drawing similarities to the attempted Trump assassination and looking at Kennedy and what it meant when he was killed for global politics and what he was trying to do versus what they did after they killed, someone that we don't know who killed him.
Right. So hold that thought, because I do want to ask you about that and the similarities to the Trump. But so I catch a lot of grief because I don't have the same kind of ire for the Republicans as I do for the Democrats. I have more ire for the Democrats. Why? Because I was a Democrat my whole life, and I never voted for a Republican. I voted for Democrats, right? And I got screwed over by Democrats. Republicans never came asking for my vote. Guess who did? Democrats, right? And I gave them my vote, and I helped lots of them get elected. And then they cheated us repeatedly, lied to us, and governed because there is no difference. We now know that we don't live in a democracy. That's not hyperbole. That was proven by a Princeton study over 10 years ago now, that we live in a bona fide oligarchy, which means your vote doesn't matter, that the people whose vote does matter is the donor class, the people who control them. And here's the rub. So Eric Schmidt from Google is the big Democratic donor. Then Peter Thiel's the big Republican donor. They both work together.
Yep.
They both work together. So that
Good
we're
buddies.
so it is a uniparty. And so that's the weird. So what you said is 100% true. And I've had arguments with people who are college educated, smarty pants people who will, till their dying day, say the Democrats are better than the Republicans. What do you say to that?
I mean, I would say that they should research the history of the CIA, because who do both Peter Thiel and Eric Schmidt both work with? The CIA.
That's right.
Is all of the, the CIA's job is to control elections, to control governments, to control the global situation so that it's pro-US. And that inevitably from the start, it was founded by corporate lawyers, and that has been doing the bidding of the corporate oligarchy ever since it was founded, whether that be overthrowing the government of Guatemala for United Fruit, or, having nothing to do with the coup in Ukraine in 2014. And I'm not trying to say that the CIA is behind everything. I'm just trying to say that is a good representation, and learning the history of the CIA is a really great way to learn what's going on behind the theater that we're all shown, because they present us the news, which is, co-opted by the CIA, and that is to hide the way that they're actually all just working for the corporate club, the CIA included. The CIA is not some American intelligence agency. It is a corporate fraud.
Well, the list of things that the CIA isn't involved in is much smaller than the list of things they are. The Arab Spring, everybody thought that was some kind of organic uprising. Of course it wasn't. It was instituted by tons of cash by the CIA, and that's how we got Libya. That's how we got Syria, the Syrian war. They've been trying to overthrow Syria for decades and decades. Even Christine Amanpour knew that in 2003 when she interviewed Assad, saying, wow, they really want to get rid of it. That was in 2003. That was 10 years before the Arab Spring. Okay, so the Arab Spring was completely manufactured by the CIA, just like the Syria, just like the ISIS, just like the Al Qaeda. We invent all these things so we can have a boogeyman, and we work with them whenever we want. Let me play the rest of your video, and then we'll get your commentary.
War at all costs, otherwise you're going to kill democracy. Don't question Pfizer or any big corporation because they have your best interest in mind as they pay for your advertising on your news stations. Don't hold anyone accountable, least of all the banks post-2008, as Obama comes in and bails them all out. The fuck happened to the Democratic Party? It's about time we go back and take back the left. Not even to mention that, now suddenly you can be pregnant and a man. It's like, science? We'll just edit science. Let me remind you that science is built on questions. The whole foundation of science is that anything scientific is replicable, as in, if it's true, you can replicate that experiment and you'll get the same result. And it's only through asking questions, forming hypotheses, and testing those hypotheses that we know what's real. And anyone can read science, anyone can understand science, and anyone can practice science. And if you're not supposed to question the science, that's not science. That's dogma. That's corporate propaganda. That is totalitarian bullshit shoved down your throat so hard you can't breathe.
Okay.
And I don't mean I took a fuckload of fentanyl and I'm about to die, can't breathe. I mean open your fucking eyes, guys.
So my question to you is, why do you hate the LGBTQ, and why are you a white supremacist? After listening to that, if you're questioning science, you're a white supremacist, and if you don't, if you think a man cannot get pregnant, then you're deaf. So you know what's interesting about that point that you made? Because now we are to accept that a man can become pregnant because a man can transition and then have a vagina and a womb. And
there's an emoji for it. So,
but they say having a vagina doesn't make you a woman. But they are now currently saying that about a boxer in the Olympics, that boxer is a woman because that boxer has a vagina. They're using that argument, even though that boxer has an XY chromosome, which are supposed to be male chromosomes. That's what I've always been taught. Maybe they're changing that. But XX chromosome, those are for the ladies, and XY, that's for men. But they're now saying, no, this boxer is a woman because this boxer has a vagina. Well, what about the trans man who gets pregnant? He has a vagina. Doesn't that make him a... So go ahead. If you want, you could speak to that. I just wanted that.
Yeah, that one's super interesting. That just broke, and it's this whole thing on Twitter right now. And I was doing I was trying to dig into it and trying to address the nuance too, because I try not, sometimes it's just bullshit and it's just clearly bullshit. And when there is nuance, I try to address it so that it's not just, so you're not just, plastering over it. And I'm not clear yet whether, so I think that the mainstream claim is that she has Swyer syndrome, SWYER, which is where you have an XY chromosome, but there's something wrong with your endocrine system, and so you present as a female from birth, and you're born with a vagina and a womb and ovaries and everything, despite having an XY chromosome. But if that's true, if she has Swyer syndrome and an XY chromosome, then my understanding on it's very easy to do the research, that Swyer syndrome means that your hormone system doesn't work properly from birth, and so you're on replacement hormones your whole life. And so then the other part of the reporting is that she failed a test for having really high testosterone last year and was disqualified from the other boxing association. And so those two things do not line up, because if you have Swyer syndrome, you don't have elevated testosterone unless you're taking it exogenously. And if you do have elevated testosterone and you're not taking testosterone exogenously, then you can't have Swyer syndrome because you're not able to produce hormones yourself. And so there's this mismatch in this story that seems to imply that either they're lying about Swyer syndrome, or she has Swyer syndrome and that's legit, but then she's taking exogenous testosterone in order to get really high testosterone, which is also not allowed. So I'm not clear on what's happening yet, but regardless of what is happening, it's really weird and it's not good. And it's I understand that there is nuance to that story. I'm just zeroing in on people making the argument that that boxer has a vagina, so she's a woman. Yeah. Well, obviously, suddenly they can define what a woman is.
But you've told me now for at least a couple of years that doesn't make you a woman. So, but now I also understand that boxer has testes, but they're internal. So
yeah, I don't know anything about her testes.
Okay, so I didn't want to make this a segment about that, so I'm not. But
the whole Olympics has been a total shit show. And when you combine that with the reporting about their first lady, it gets pretty interesting.
You mean about the Candace Owens reporting about her first lady?
Well, Candace Owens was very strategic to report about the reporting that the French journalist did.
Yes.
Because she knows how this game is played.
Yes. There were some French journalists that reported that the first lady of France was not born a female. That's the reporting.
That there's no photos of her before the age of 30 and that her brother is missing.
To me, that's the least weird part of that story. The weird part of that story is that I'm pretty sure she was 40 years old and she started dating a 16-year-old kid. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, her student. I don't know if it was exactly 40, but yeah, she was a full-blown adult teacher, man or woman, and started teaching or dating her. She left her family. She left her alleged husband and children in order to start dating a child.
How old is Macron, president of France? So here's his age. I'll get his age and her age. Why wouldn't they just say it? Why would they make me read paragraphs? Okay, so he was born in he's 46. Yep. So he's 46. How old is Macron's wife? Bridget Macron, that's her name.
Yeah.
So he's 46, and there's a 25-year difference, 25-year age gap. So
and they
that
got
would,
together when he was 14, 15, or 16.
So that would make her, so if he's 46.
She's 71.
She's 71.
Yeah.
You know a lot of dudes who are 46? Anyway, I don't know any. That's the only one who are into 71-year-old ladies.
That's what we call a pedophile. Her.
So
not
her.
him.
So she
Yeah.
was 20. What did I say? 25-year difference? 26-year difference?
Yeah.
26 years older than him when they met. So, wow. So she
Yeah.
was his high school teacher, right?
Yeah, that would be like me, a 31-year-old man, starting to date my 8-year-old student. I mean, it's a little different if your
Yeah,
student is
well-
in puberty, but it's still completely messed up. Like
So 16 and
completely unacceptable.
According to
She was like
Wikipedia,
40.
they met at age 40. She met the 15-year-old Macron.
she was 40. He was 15.
at La Providence High School, where she was
40.
a teacher. and
That's
he was
worse
a
than Jerry Seinfeld.
He was a student and classmate of her daughter.
That's
and
worse.
she had kids and a family. And a brother
That's
who
the
is
that's the
missing.
that's the and a missing brother who we can't find. That's
Who's
the-
allegedly still alive and just very private.
and everybody just look. I know France has, they're much more relaxed and not uptight about stuff like that. But come on,
Yeah, maybe they should not be so relaxed about it.
if that was a 40-year-old dude with a 15-year-old girl, I think some people would raise an eyebrow about it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people today, especially Americans, don't realize the ongoing imperial nature of France and their sort of African empire. France has had dominion over all of like sub-Saharan North Africa for decades and decades through their monetary control. And I think a lot of Americans think France is just France.
Yeah.
But France has still been an empire for a long time, and it's just now crumbling. Africa is breaking free of France. So there's a lot more to France than most people realize. It's a lot more powerful of a nation behind the scenes than Americans are informed about.
Yeah, we covered a little bit about that.
Yep.
And they've had these exploitive financial deals with countries in Africa, and countries in Africa are now they're now pushing back on that.
It's great.
But yes, they're empire still. So yeah, that's what I've been trying to I've been trying to come to terms with, that the people who my whole life I've been aligned with politically are now turned into what I used to call right wing. They're pro-war, but now a lot of the right wingers I know are against war. So now I don't know even know. Do you think the left-right paradigm means anything anymore?
Not really. I mean, it should. Words matter, but you're right that the roles have completely flipped. Like, and I think that I hang out with, and I bet that you hang out with, a lot of sort of like generally like right wing identifying people, but they're kind of just center, because there are all of these Republican voters out there that are also very pro-war, and anything that the Republican Party says, they're for it. And so like there is capture on both sides of the political aisle, but I think that a lot of the voters that are behind Trump these days are a lot more anti-war, pro-free speech. They're the kind of people that are just like more fun to hang out with. Like, I don't want to hang out with people that are going to, that I'm going to have to censor my own thoughts around.
So that's why I used to like hanging out with people I thought were lefties, because they were pro-free speech, anti-censorship, and was always the Christian right that wanted to censor lyrics and all that, and movies and Playboy magazines and all that stuff. So I was always for freedom of speech, anti-censorship. I want to hang out with those people. I was always anti-war. Pro-war people creep me out. And then I was always bodily autonomy, right? So now when it came to COVID, all those people who were bodily autonomy, my body, my choice, that all went out the window, all right? And now it was
for the
not
greater good.
Right, it's for the greater good, and now it's your body, someone else's choice.
The government's choice.
The government's choice for it, and it's not even a medicine that has long-term studies. It was an experimental medicine that they're
experimental gene medicine. Right.
I know that it's approved by the FDA, Ian. I know.
I know that it was safe and effective, and YouTube will clearly put a note down below where you can get informed about all the facts.
That's right. I know.
Don't read RFK Jr.'s book about it.
Don't do whatever you do. Don't do that.
Don't read about it.
So that's but now that's all flipped. So now you find more people who vote, who consider themselves conservative, who are for bodily autonomy, who are for anti-war, and who are for free speech. It's the weirdest thing. People, well, what do they go? What are you, a free speech absolutist? Yes. The antidote to bad speech is more speech. They make it out like it's a bad thing. The goddamn country is founded on free speech.
Yep. But they do everything they can to try to disconnect us from the founding of the country, to try to make it feel like that's an outdated concept. And I have a theory that they realized somewhere in the Bush-Obama years, they realized that with the internet coming in, it's changing the nature of just society and civilization. And at some point, it really looks like they flipped from thinking like it used to be that the right was more controllable by these sort of like deep statey actors, because the right was more aligned with corporations and more aligned with it was just easier to manipulate the right, and the left was so pro free speech and anti-war that they were not pliable. But I think at a certain point they realized that the left, like inherent to liberal ideology, is this idea of the greater good. The whole point of like left and liberal thinking is that we work together to accomplish more for the greater good through government, versus like conservatives are like, no, leave me alone, do it the old way, and like individual liberty. And at a certain point, if you start to manipulate that concept of the greater good, you can get a lot done in the internet age, because you can start to create group thinks. You can start to create this like mass psychosis that will force people to take an experimental medication against their will for the greater good.
So you get the same kind of garbage that I've been getting for years now. Again, like I said, that my mission here is to point out to people that there isn't a difference between the Democrats and Republicans, and to pop that bubble of idea and to disabuse them of that idea that the Democrats work for someone different than the Republicans do. I'm talking about the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats, right? Now, you're talking about before, I have lots of lefties who come to my show, like hippies. So I have hippies who come to my show. I have worker organizers, union organizers come to my show. I remember the hippies. I forget where I was. I was maybe in Des Moines, and these hippies were like, "What? This is right when it started to happen." They're like, "What the hell happened to everybody? We're supposed to be anti-war. We're supposed to be skeptical of big pharma. What the hell happened to these people?" And I was like, "I'm with you. I'm 100% with you." So it's wild to watch the lefties and righties come together and realize that they're being lied to by the same people. And I just want to show this. Here's the kind of pushback that you get when you tell the truth about the Democratic Party. She says, "It's obvious at this point that you're not a good faith actor. Either you never were or you sold out because of you did this rant, where you just spelled out the truth that the Democrats are the CIA party. They're not for bodily autonomy. They're pro-war, and they're for big pharma. So after you did that, she called you a sellout. You're not a good faith actor." I get that.
I'm actually a CIA plant.
They go, "You started your following by exposing corruption across the board. Now you're divisive and pretend only one party is the problem. You don't even sound genuine anymore." But she doesn't push back.
I got such a kick out of that comment.
She doesn't push back against any of the things that you said. They just do that. You're a Trumper. That's what Cornel West did when he came on my show, by the way. Cornel West, who revealed his lack of integrity.
Wow. And that's a bummer.
That was a super big bummer. He called me a Trumper. When I pointed out they're using the same RICO statute and the same grand jury to prosecute Donald Trump, as they're using the same grand jury, the same RICO statute to prosecute Stop Cop City protesters. And I go, "So now you see the game that's being played." And he said, "Sounds like you like Trump more than you're letting on." So that was when I was done with him. He was dead to me. And now he goes on to with his stupid message of the Democrats are the lesser evil. And then he does a rally in Harlem and he gets 5 white dudes to show up. How's that working out for you, Cornell? Who do you think was wrong in that argument? Who do you think was right? The right guy was me. I was right. I'll help you out because you can't figure that shit out. I was right and you're wrong. Okay.
Yeah, the thing about this gal's comment too is that, just to add context, like, when I say that the Democrat Party is the CIA party, I'm not just guessing. Like, you remember Hunter Biden's laptop?
Yes.
The CIA got 51 CIA directors and agents, like all of the top brass of the intelligence community for the last 20 years. They got them all to sign a letter saying, if you read the actual letter, it says in it, we have no evidence whatsoever that this laptop is Russian disinformation, but our experience in the intel community makes us suspect that it could be. So you should so trust us. It's probably. And so that letter was what gave the media their news cycle of top 51 top CIA analysts declare the laptop a hoax. But they clearly said in it they don't know. They're just going to give you this soundbite so you can run with it. But the people that signed that letter were people like John Brennan. Like the first two names on the letter were people that perjured themselves on the stand for lying to us about the NSA spying activities, lying to us about Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib torture programs. Like it was a bunch of certified liars from the CIA signing this document to basically get that laptop out of the election just before the election so that Biden could get elected. It was very clearly them stepping in.
And so instead of people like that, and I'm sure that she's a nice lady, but what I'm saying is what's mind-boggling to me is that you're not upset about the things that Ian just said in that video. You're upset that somehow you feel like he's not at the same time saying something about another part of the uniparty. Like what? Yeah. You're not upset that the CIA lied? And now the CIA is lying at the behalf of the Democratic nominee. That's what that doesn't make you go, huh? What in the hell? What? That the CIA's on the side of the Democratic nominee for president and is doing this actively fighting against the Republican nominee? And the reason why I think that is because Donald Trump didn't come up through the normal channels, right? So they couldn't control him quite. They could control him a little. Like that's what Russiagate was all about. Russiagate was trying to discredit him and diminish him so they could control him. And that's exactly what Chuck Schumer said to Rachel Maddow, that Donald Trump shouldn't go against the intelligence community, because if you do, they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. And what Chuck Schumer didn't realize he was saying, he was giving the game away, which is the game is that the CIA and the intelligence community doesn't work for the president, that the president actually has to make sure he keeps them happy. It's not the other way around. So the next question that Rachel Maddow should have asked was, well, then who does the CIA and the FBI work for, Chuck, if they don't work for the president? That's the question, and I'll tell you who the answer is. The answer is they work for the donor class. They work for the Reid Hoffmans and the Peter Thiels and the Eric Schmidts and the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates. That's who the CIA work for. The military-industrial complex, the Rockefellers. They don't work for the president. There's a permanent state. And instead of people being upset at that, they want to somehow say, well, why don't you hate Republicans more?
Yeah. It's crazy that people can see that this is all corrupt, but then not realize that everything they've been fed about Donald Trump is coming from that media that is from the state apparatus. And so they haven't unpacked how much they hate Trump and realized that, like, you don't actually know anything about Trump because you've never viewed him with untainted eyes.
That's right.
And when you view him with untainted eyes, there's plenty to not like about him. He's no saint. There's so much to not like about him. But it's totally different than when you've just gotten your hatred for him from the media. And you have a really interesting, similar take to me, I think, about Trump's rise in the like kind of blackmail circles and how he seems to be unblackmailed, and like he doesn't party, doesn't drink. And so he has this weird relationship with a lot of the sort of like blackmail world, which seems to indicate that they can't control him through blackmail. So they've gone through all these other channels and tried all these other techniques. So everything short of shooting him, though. That was clearly Iran.
Yeah, that was clearly Iran.
Yeah, look no further into that.
So that's the next question. Is well, we have to jump to Rumble. So let's jump to Rumble, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. Everybody jump.
All right, give me 1 second. We're almost ready to go to Rumble.
So, because that's good. That's the question to me, Ian. It's like, so if there is a uniparty, which there is, and the CIA controls both of them, which they do they not control Trump as much? Because why would they kill? The reason why we know why they did it to John F. Kennedy, they assassinated John F. Kennedy because he said he wanted to break up the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and he also wanted to keep Israel from getting a nuclear weapon.
Yep.
Now,
he was also about to get AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. Letter he sent they'd been in contact for a while, and he sent the paperwork to them like 2 weeks before he got shot. And then the week after he got shot, they sent a letter back saying, "Nah, it's cool. We won't do that."
Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.